Hi everyone, welcome to the Casual Book Club. This is an asynchronous book club for mood readers and people who can't keep up with the hype. I'm your club president, here to host a meeting with everyone to talk about our first book, Ready Player One. Ready Player One is written by Ernest Cline. It is a science fiction novel published in 2011. Okay, if everyone's ready, let's start with the section for those members who haven't read the book yet. And don't worry, I was 15 years late. A few more years, and you can read it in time for the 20th anniversary. The term mashed potato books originates from Books Unbound, a podcast that I listen to every week. It refers to a book that someone puts off reading for a long time while waiting for the perfect moment. It's like how someone will save their favorite dish for the end of a meal. To me, Ready Player One is one of many such mashed potato books. I first heard about Ready Player One when I started watching booktube videos in secondary school. The hype for the book resurfaced after the release of the movie adaptation, but I think the movie only had a lukewarm reception. Regardless, I was still curious about it, and I managed to get the ebook from the library. I don't often read science fiction, but an aspect that I enjoy is the exploration of possible futures. The imagined future in this novel doesn't seem too far fetched. So in Ready Player One, the virtual world known as the Oasis has become the new reality as the real world declines due to human exploitation. Themes of environmental catastrophe are briefly explored, but the treasure hunt still takes precedent. I enjoyed the treasure hunt and the puzzling aspect of the book the most. It reminded me of The Wishing Game by Max Shaffer, except that Ready Player One is a dystopian science fiction rather than a cozy contemporary. I can think of quite a few books which have a similar premise. Truly Devious comes to mind. It's a book that I have read. Then the Inheritance Games, but I haven't read that one. Maybe I should seek out these other books if I enjoyed Ready Player One and The Wishing Game so much. So the book is fast paced with multiple plot lines that keep the story moving. There's obviously the main storyline about the treasure hunt, but there's also the meaning behind the hunt, the mystery surrounding the Oasis creator's persona, and the true identity of the main character's friends online. All of these weaving tales can be hooked all the way until the end. I would recommend this book to people who like adventure books with riddles and puzzles. While it does have aspects of the mystery, dystopian, and science fiction genres, I actually think adventure novel is the most accurate description. If you are looking for a book with stronger dystopian undertones, you might want to try Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. For Ready Player One, I gave this book 4 stars because I genuinely enjoyed it. There's probably another video that I can make about how I rate my books, and I don't really like to share star ratings of books because I feel like it's a bit subjective, but I think there's still kind of a benchmark or gauge with the star rating if you want to know how I felt about the book. So, in general, I would give it a 4 stars. I won't explain in this section why I docked the 1 star because I think the reason is a bit subjective and I don't want to overly influence your thoughts on the book. If you really want to know, you can proceed on to the next section, which has some mild spoilers. For those who don't want spoilers, I hope that this inspired you to give the book a try. But if you have listened to the review and you feel like, oh okay, I'm not sure if I want to read this book for myself, you can actually continue on and listen to the spoilery section where I will give a summary of the book and then as well as some of my more specific thoughts which are full on spoilers for the book. So if you're interested in that, you can continue listening. Okay, for those who are leaving now, thanks for joining. I'll see you next time. Okay, on to this next section. I'm going to explain why I gave this book a 4 stars instead of a 5. And I'm going to warn you again, it may contain some mild spoilers and opinions that can alter your experience. So I gave it 4 because I really enjoyed the experience of reading the book. I enjoyed exploring the different aspects of the Oasis and trying to figure out the puzzles at the same time. I would have given it maybe a 4.5 or 5 stars, but I needed to dock that 1 star for two things. The first thing, but I feel like it's less important, is that I wasn't 100% convinced by the resolution of the romantic subplot. I think it felt too rushed, but then again, maybe I was also rushing to finish reading the book because the plot was so interesting. The second and more egregious or important reason was that I felt like the ending was a deus ex machina. Um, I think that's what people would describe as that.
Deus ex machina.
Maybe it's just my opinion, but you can feel free to decide if this is a deal breaker for you if you haven't read the book yet. If this is not a deal breaker for you, then go ahead and you can find out for yourself and let me know if you agree with me or not. Okay, so now I'm actually going to get into the full spoilers of the book for our book club meeting today. So if you don't want to be spoiled, this is your final warning. Click away now. We will see you in the next one. Alright, casual book club time. Welcome to the Casual Book Club. This is an asynchronous book club that convenes whenever I finish a book that I think is worth talking about. It's perfect for mood readers and people who can't keep up with the latest books. Welcome, welcome. Let's chat. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to recap the book for those who either have forgotten the book already or you haven't read the book and you're just too lazy and you just want someone to read it to you. It will include spoilers. Okay, so Ready Player One is set in 2045 on an Earth that has been severely altered by environmental degradation. Amidst this, there is a new virtual reality that people escape to called the Oasis. Instead of living in the real world, which is becoming more uninhabitable, people live in the Oasis. Advanced technology has allowed for the creation of an incredibly immersive alternate reality. Depending on the type of technology that you have access to, like the haptic gloves and high definition glasses, you get to experience this world to varying degrees of realness. So we come into this book and we are experiencing the world through the eyes of Wade. He's a poor teenager who lives in a slum in the real world, but he still attends school in the Oasis. The story starts a few years after the death of the Oasis creator, this guy called Halliday. After Halliday passed away, something triggered in his will, and this kicked off an Easter egg hunt, or some kind of a treasure hunt. The winner of this hunt will inherit his immense wealth and ownership of the Oasis's parent company. So our main character Wade, he's part of a community of people who are obsessed with this hunt, and they call themselves Gunters. So after the hunt was released, Wade spent all those years gathering information and preparing himself to crack the first clue. The hunt turns up empty for years, and the hype kind of dies down for everyone except the die-hard fanatics. The hunt becomes a stuff of myth until Wade is the first one to successfully complete the first stage. After his character's name appears on the leaderboard, more and more people start to complete the hunt because they figure out how he was able to do it. And then more powerful forces, including this capitalistic company called IOI, start to hunt him down. Literally. They basically try to assassinate him, and along the way, they also successfully killed another gunter who was in the lead. So along the way, in this sort of treasure hunt scenario, we meet other gunters who become Wade's friends and confidants. There are ups and downs in their relationships, and we see how they change due to the newfound wealth and status as famous gunters. So Wade has a best friend, H, and they were best friends before Wade solved the first clue. And there's also a third character who is Wade's idol, or Wade idolizes this person called Artemis. She's also a famous gunter even before the first clue was solved. They all sort of become friends after they finish completing the first stage of the hunt. And so that's three of them. There are two other characters, a pair of brothers. They are kind of important to the story, but not as central. So, to be honest, you don't really need to know that much about them. during the period between completing the first stage, they actually call it gates in the book. Between the first gate and the second gate, they kind of have a falling out. So it's sort of like they were friends after they finished the first gate, and then somewhere along the line, and I can't remember why, they all sort of like break up and they fall apart. Specifically, the relationship between Wade and Artemis. They were in this situationship for a while until Wade confesses, and then Artemis ghosts him. Oops. And separately, Wade and H just kind of stopped talking, even though they were really good friends before all of this hunting stuff started. So in the end, it kind of comes down to the wire as IOI, that capitalistic company, they start to use all their means, all their money, and all their employees to get to that last gate. And they happen to be the first ones to find that last gate and get access to that last gate. So they use all their wealth, all their power to try and block the other competitors or basically everyone else in the Oasis from trying to enter the area to get their fair shot at the prize money. So for Wade, through this incredibly crazy plan, and with the help of the co-creator of the Oasis, Ogden Morrow, he takes down all of the IOI's defenses from the inside. And then him and all the other Gunters invade the area. And this is when, I mean, the relationship between Wade and his friends was sort of repaired after he did this. Like, he went rogue um, to try and break through IOI's defenses. Yeah. So after all of the Gunters invaded the area, as a last resort, IOI blows up the area or activates some kind of killing machine thingy to prevent everyone else from getting to the gate first. And so everyone who is in that vicinity, quote unquote, dies, but they die in the virtual world. Except, wait, because he actually managed to unlock a second life after completing a mini game earlier on in the story. With this second life, he manages to complete the final stage and is officially declared the winner. So Wade splits the winnings with his friends as promised, and he repairs his relationship with Artemis. Yeah. So credits to SparkNotes for help with this summary. I know it doesn't really have the gravitas of actually reading the book, but I mean, if you really wanted to, get the feels and stuff from the book, then I suggest you should just read it. Okay, so now some of my comments that I wanted to talk about. First part is on the beginning. So I thought it was cool and it made total sense that the first gate was on Lupus, which is the planet that is full of schools. It's like a non-combat planet and all. It's the one planet that anyone in the world will have access to as long as they are enrolled in the system. And this made complete sense because it's the only way that Halliday, the creator of the Oasis, can ensure that the egg hunt will be open to everyone. Um, Still, I guess I'm not sure whether adults who have never enrolled in Oasis school will be able to get there if they have no credits, like in-game credits to travel there. But I'm sure there is some way that adults could have gotten to the planet. So I think this was a really interesting. Would you call it an Easter egg? Yeah, I don't think so. But it was just an interesting plot point. Honestly, while planning this meeting, I completely forgot about the major theme of the 80s running through this novel. The creator of the Oasis, Halliday, he wasn't just a coding and gaming genius, he was super obsessed with the 80s. So his Easter egg hunt naturally involved a lot of 80s references. So these are references to pop culture that exist in the real world, and they come into play when the characters are trying to clear the gates. The only example that I can remember though is Pac-Man. I know that this 80s thing is a big selling point of the book and movie, but I actually didn't really care. I think even if you don't care about the 80s, you can still enjoy this book. The references are more like Easter egg than actual plot points. Next, I want to talk about the love story between Parzival and Artemis. So again, Parzival is Wade's in-game character. To be honest, I wasn't that interested in the love story. It was this strange situationship where they were working together to pass the different stages. and I was mostly interested in the hunt. So when Parzival was becoming distracted by this infatuation that he had with Artemis, I felt a bit annoyed. But maybe there was a point to be made here. Maybe it means something that his overwhelming obsession with the hunt can be overridden by human connection or his craving for human connection. I think it echoes this parallel at the end of the book where he decides that there are things that matter outside of the hunt and outside of the oasis. I think it's also part of his character development. So at the beginning, we find out that Wade has a certain way that he thinks about the prize money, and he has a certain plan of what he would do if he won the prize money. And Artemis has a completely different idea, even though they have the same thoughts about the state of the world. So Parzival just wanted to escape and bring his friends along with him so they would like get on a ship and then fly to a different planet or something. But Artemis wants to use the wealth to help the marginalized people in society and to bring everyone up with her, I guess. So there's this sort of vague theme of whether they should fix it or escape. Next section is the commentary on brain rot. Hmm. In the next arc of the story, after Wade and Artemis had a falling out, and I think it was also after Wade's actual house got bombed, he got out of the stacks and went to Columbus. And I believe Columbus was the location of the Oasis servers, and they had the most up to date infrastructure to access the Oasis. So while Wade was in Columbus, he really threw himself into the hunt. And I felt like he kind of devolved in terms of how much time he spent in the Oasis. It reminded me of the scenes of the obese humans in Wall-E who were all sitting on chairs and just watching their screens all the time. I'm sure there's an observation here about the state of our society where we're all living online. And I mean, if you go on public transport nowadays, everyone and their mother is like looking at their phone. This is a tangent that I could make another whole video about, but I want to give a quick alternative perspective on this actually. I do think there is a case to be made about being addicted to our phones and having this behavior cross over into unhealthy territory. But I also think that people are at their core trying to stay connected. So they're trying to stay connected with their loved ones, so they're messaging them on WhatsApp or whatever, or they're trying to keep up with what's happening in the world by reading the news, or they're just reading their books, light novels, manga, webtoons, And I think it's a good thing, but obviously maybe too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. Okay, next section. The last commentary section is actually my question about whether there's a commentary here about wealth and greed. So this section is a bit flimsy, but I wondered if there was an observation about the effect that wealth has on people. So Wade's in-game avatar, Parzival, had powered up to the maximum level. I think this was after they cleared the first gate. And he was earning a lot of money from his newfound fame after being the first person to pass the first gate. But he seemed to be obsessed with gathering more and more power-ups, or maybe it was money, stuff like that. So I feel like there's an observation there about greed, or it could really be that Wade was just obsessed with making progress somewhere because he wasn't making any progress in the hunt or in his relationships, whether with Artemis or with H. In the next section, I call this the secret plan because I want to discuss what Wade did in kind of the third act of the story. So I'm referring to the part where he infiltrates IOI in a kind of Robin Hood situation. So he used all the wealth that he amassed from his fame, right, to gain backdoor access into IOI, and from there he managed to bring down the defenses around the final gate. And to be clear, it wasn't that he just threw money at the problem. He bought like fake identities, and then he bought backdoor codes and stuff, but he still had to kind of break into the facility in some way. And the thing is, IOI knew who he was, right? So it's not like he can just go in with his regular name. So he came up with a new name and then he made himself bankrupt or like owed IOI some money. I think they called it indentured. So he was indentured to the IOI. and so he had to work there as some kind of slave or corporate slave or something lah. So through that, he managed to get into IOI without being discovered, and then he used the backdoor codes to sort of like hack into the system in order to bring down the defenses around the final gate. And then that leads us into like the final arc where they go into the resolution of the whole story. I was really impressed by how he pulled it off, and it was also pretty logical to me. I think it was kind of crazy that he did that, but it wasn't something that was out of the realm of possibility that I couldn't believe it lah. However, okay, I think this setup was really good, but then the ending came along, and I think I mentioned earlier on in this meeting that I felt like the ending wasn't as satisfying as it could have been. At this point of the book, it feels like all hope is lost because despite all the efforts that Wade has spent in trying to break down the force field that IOI had put up around the final gate, it wouldn't work unless he could log into the Oasis in the first place. And I think at that point he had already abandoned his house and everything, right? So where is he gonna go? And I think that applies to his friends as well. So H and Artemis as well, because he knew that I think IOI were already coming after them. And just when they needed him the most, Ogden Morrow, the co-creator of the Oasis, swoops in to save the day. Hmm. Is this what is described as a Deus ex machina moment? Okay, I don't really know how to pronounce this word.
Deus ex machina.
Just to make sure that I wasn't misremembering, I went back to check the plot summary also on Wikipedia and Spark Notes. And okay, I admit on a whole, right, most of the work had already been done by Wade. So I think he was hard carrying them lah. But um in the end, they wouldn't have been able to complete the plan without Ogden Morrow's interference. So I mean, I think maybe it would have been fine if he had been roped in earlier, so it doesn't feel like it was this situation where the writer had written all the way up to that point, and then he realized, oh wait, I have this plot hole. What do I do? And then Ogden Morrow comes in. He's like, okay, let me just plug him in here and then get him to offer up his computers and stuff. When he really didn't appear that often. I guess Wade and Artemis broke up at his party or something, if I remember correctly. But I don't know. I felt like there wasn't enough setup from that side lah. Okay, I guess if he had been involved from the beginning, then I feel like the tensions would not be as high, and like we wouldn't have as good of a third arc. Okay, that's all of the main sections I wanted to talk about. So to end off the meeting, I wanted to have some final kind of overall thoughts, and I have 3 points that I wanted to bring up. The first point, I actually thought the book was quite topical, despite it being first published in 2011. I think the themes of environmental degradation are still quite relevant now. And I mean, we've been talking about the environment and sustainability for more than 50 years, so I guess it will always be topical. But I guess I'm not sure how long this will be considered a topic of debate lah, rather than a matter of urgency. Okay, that's a topic for another time. Apart from the themes of environmental degradation, there's also the themes that I had mentioned earlier about the use of technology and how we interact with it and how our world is being shaped by it. So yeah, I thought it was quite interesting to sort of read it while keeping in mind what is happening in the real world today. My second point, I'm curious to see how the movie version compares to the book. So there was a movie version released in 2018. When I first mentioned that I was reading this book to my partner, Mr. Bao, he mentioned that he had seen the movie and he felt like this book would probably be better as a movie. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I think he might be right because this book has a lot of descriptions and world building, which would probably be better viewed or better expressed visually in a visual medium like a movie. I'm definitely gonna try and watch it to compare, but unfortunately, it's not on Netflix. So we'll see when I get to it, if I can get my hands on it somewhere. Alright, and my last sort of random point is that I found out that there's a sequel to this book, which I have not heard anyone talk about, and it's called Ready Player 2. Duh. I just looked it up, and this sequel was only published in 2020 after sitting in that writing process for 3 years from 2017. So I'm a bit curious to see what he did with the sequel, especially about the world outside of the Oasis and whether he will sort of address what happens after that and what Wade and his friends will be doing with the prize money that they got. And then who is the next enemy, Are we gonna get introduced to like the world government or something? Because there didn't seem to be a government actually when I was reading the book. And yeah, I would naturally expect that. I suppose that would be a bigger part in the second book if you start talking about the real world. To be honest, I don't think a sequel was necessary. If you are just interested in reading the first book, I think you can do so without having to read the second book because the first book does end on a bit of an ambiguous note because I think it ends right after Wade and his friends win the prize money. So I think the natural question next is what they're going to do with it, and I believe that's what will happen in the second book. But I feel that the whole arc of the first book is about the hunt, and that arc is quite satisfying to read as a reader. So I think it's okay if you just want to read the first book. Based on my guess, I also feel like the target audience for book one and book two would be very different. So you can see if maybe book one appeals to you and then you can read that. I'm not sure if you should read book two without reading book one, but maybe you can watch the movie of book one and then you can read book two. I don't know why anyone would do that, but yeah, all that to say, I'm not really in a hurry to pick up the sequel, but I'm glad that I read the first book because that's one mashed potato book out of the way. Alright, on to our outro. So that's all my thoughts on Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and that's a wrap for meeting number one of the Casual Book Club. All of our meeting notes will be typed up by our club secretary and posted on the Casual Book Club website. You can find all the links below in the description box. If you enjoyed this meeting, do leave us some feedback below. Our club president's email is also in the description box if you'd like to reach out. You can join the club by clicking the subscribe button, or if you prefer emails, you can subscribe to the club president's email newsletter. Thanks so much, I'll see you next time.